Welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. This is episode 223, Nutrition Facts Panel, Micronutrients, Percent Daily Value, and what it all means. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Real World Nutrition. This is the second of two episodes focused entirely on the Nutrition Facts Panel. So if you have not listened to episode 222 yet, that one covered serving sizes, calories, and the macronutrients, carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Now this episode builds on that foundation and shifts the focus to the micronutrients, so the vitamins and minerals, the percent daily value, and how all of this information is meant to be used. The Nutrition Facts Panel is one of the most common tools people encounter when making food choices. Yet in my experience, it's one of the most misunderstood. It may seem pretty cut and dried, literally black and white, but there's a lot of information there, and how it is written is not always understood. So as I have said before, the people who make the food and package the food provide the information. I help people interpret the information, and then people choose how they want to apply and use that information. So based on my experience, the big part of the confusion on the nutrition facts label comes from the right side of the label, where is the percent daily value, that column, and also the vitamins and minerals that are listed towards the bottom. So I'm going to cover both of those in this episode. Now, as with last week's episode, this episode is based on two blog posts from the Nutrition Facts Panel series. So one of those blog posts focuses on the sodium, potassium, and the other vitamins and minerals. The other focuses entirely on the percent daily values and what those percentages actually mean. So if you look in the show notes, if you want to see that, you can find the links to both of those, as well as the links to the blogs related to last week's episode, as well as a link to last week's episode. Although you can just look in your podcast feed and go to last week's episode right before this one, or after this one, before this one, however it goes. All right. So I want to make it clear here that the goal here is not to memorize numbers, turn labeling reading into a math exercise or homework or something you have to spend so much time doing while you're at the grocery store. The goal is to understand what the label is trying to communicate and how to use it in a practical way that supports your overall eating patterns and your personal goals. Now, first, I want to do a quick reminder about serving size. So before getting into the micronutrients and the percent daily value, it is really important to revisit this one key point from the earlier episode and that earlier blog post. Everything listed on the Nutrition Facts Panel is tied to the serving size at the top of the label. So that includes sodium, that includes vitamin D, that includes calcium, iron, potassium, and every percentage listed on the right based on that serving size. So if the serving size is 1 cup and 2 cups are eaten, then we need to double the numbers. If half a serving is eaten, then we cut the numbers in half. I know that may seem pretty obvious, but a lot of people miss this part. So the label doesn't automatically adjust based on how much is actually consumed. I mean, maybe in a few years we'll have these digital labels that will do that for us, but, we're not there yet. So this is one of the most important pieces of context when reading the food labels. And it applies just as much to the micronutrients or the vitamins and minerals as it does to the calories and fat and protein and carbohydrates. So why certain vitamins and minerals appear on the label? A common question that I get is, why is only some vitamins and minerals listed on the Nutrition Facts Panel when others aren't? So some are there, some aren't. Many aren't really. So the nutrients that are required on the label are not random. They are based on nutrients considered to be of public health significance. So these are nutrients that large portions of the population tend to overconsume or underconsume. So we refer to these as nutrients of concern. And this list of nutrients of concern have changed over time. So in earlier versions of the nutrition facts label, vitamin A and vitamin C were required to be listed on the label. And intake patterns shifted and deficiencies of those two nutrients became less common at a population level. At the same time, vitamin D and potassium emerged as nutrients that many people were not getting enough of. So as a result, vitamin D and potassium replaced vitamin A and vitamin C on the updated label. Now, this change doesn't mean that vitamins A and C are no longer important. All of our micronutrients are important. It just reflects which nutrients are most relevant from a public health perspective right now. Sodium, calcium, and iron have remained on the label because intake patterns continue to show either excessive intake or insufficient intake, or both, depending on the nutrient and the population group. Now, I want to mention this. We have to be very specific and choose what information is on the nutrition facts label, the nutrition facts panel. And sometimes people want more information, but there's already a lot of information on there that is cause for confusion. So it just only has that information that I'm talking about that is required. So where are these nutrients on the label? Well, sodium appears in that upper portion of the nutrition facts panel along with the macronutrients. So it's right, I don't have a label in front of me, it's right under the fat, under the listing of fat. So the placement of sodium on the nutrition facts panel reflects how significant sodium intake is to the overall diet and how closely it is tied to processed and packaged foods. Vitamin D, calcium, and iron, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium are listed near the bottom of the label below protein, but above that reference 2,000 calories. Now, the values on the labels are standardized reference amounts. So that means it makes comparison between foods easier. So I want to make it clear, they're not personalized recommendations and not meant to reflect individual needs. For example, iron has different needs based on age, based on birth sex, based on so many different things that we don't have it for every single person. Is again, just a standardized amount so it can be compared across products, food products. So understanding this distinction helps make the rest of the label easier to interpret. All right, so I'm going to go through each of these that are required on the label, an overview here. So first up, sodium. Sodium is a mineral that most Americans consume in excess. I don't think I've ever encountered somebody who's under consuming sodium. And the upper limit for sodium is 2,300 milligrams per day. And for reference, 1 teaspoon of table salt contains 2,340 milligrams of sodium. So an entire day's sodium to the upper limit fits into that 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, I want to make it clear, sodium is naturally present in many foods, even fruits and vegetables. It is essential for nerve function, muscle contraction, and fluid balance. The issue is not sodium itself. The issue is sodium added during food processing. Many people exceed sodium recommendations without ever adding salt at the table, without ever touching the salt shaker. Packaged foods are a major contributor to sodium. And while snack foods will often get the blame, it seems pretty obvious, yeah, it's snack foods, but soups, frozen meals, sauces, breads, and ready-to-eat cereals also have sodium. Sodium shows up in places people don't always expect. Now, on the nutrition facts panel, a food that provides 20% or more of the daily value for sodium is considered high. That equals about 460 milligrams per serving. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about a single food in a single portion. So throughout the day, you're going to get other sources of sodium. A food with 5% or less of the daily value, or about 115 milligrams per serving, is considered low. So for example here, one serving of regular Fritos contains about 160 milligrams of sodium. It's not as high as most people think it is. But if you choose the lightly salted version, that's about 80 milligrams per serving. So about, half the sodium. So neither number looks extreme on its own. But sodium does add up quickly across meals, across snacks, and as I said, those Fritos, that's 160 milligrams in one serving. So not a lot of people have just the one serving. So this is why context and patterns matter more than individual foods. Also, to note, restaurant foods are also a significant source of sodium. But because this episode is really just focusing on the nutrition facts panel, I'm really just focusing on the packaged foods where the labels are widely available literally at your fingertips. All right, next up here is vitamin D. So vitamin D is now required on the updated nutrition facts panel. It's when I still refer to the updated, it's been around for 5-6 years now. But many people still struggle to get enough vitamin D. And this is in part because very few foods naturally contain vitamin D. So intake depends heavily on fortified foods and sun exposure. So geographic location, season, skin coverage, and sunscreen all influence vitamin D status. And there's really not a way for us to measure how much vitamin D we're getting from the sun exposure. So I just say that is one part of it, but let's talk about the food. The reference amount used on the label is 20 micrograms, which is about 800 international units. And our individual needs for vitamin D vary by age and life stage, but that label provides a standardized reference point. So again, that standardized reference point is that 20 micrograms or that 800 IU equivalent. So 1 cup of vitamin D fortified cow's milk, which all cow's milk is required to be fortified with vitamin D, whether it's fat-free or whole milk or in between. So that 1 cup of vitamin D fortified cow's milk provides 10% of the daily value or 2 micrograms. No single food is expected to meet daily vitamin D needs. This is true for pretty much most foods. We're not going to expect, or most nutrients, we don't expect a single food to provide all of our nutrient needs by itself. So with vitamin D, this is a good example of why the label should be viewed as a tool for building patterns rather than checking a box of, oh, I got it here, I got it here, I got it here. All right, next up, iron. Iron has always been a part of the nutrition facts panel. Iron deficiency remains common, particularly among children, pregnant individuals, and those who menstruate regularly, the monthly regular blood loss. So the reference value for iron on the label is 18 milligrams, but needs vary widely based on age, sex, and life stage. Now, generally speaking, men don't need that much iron. But I want to make it clear, iron toxicity is generally not a concern when intake comes from food sources in otherwise healthy individuals. For example, beef is a rich source of iron, but I've never, ever, ever encountered somebody who's gotten iron toxicity. Actually, I don't think it exists from eating too much red meat. So we're not going to get iron toxicity from food. Again, in healthy individuals. There's some disease states where it can be a problem, but most of you already know whether you have that or not. And if you don't have it. So many cereals and grain products are often fortified with iron due to the prevalence of deficiency. And fortification plays an important role in public health nutrition. This is not a scary or bad thing. I see this on social media where people think fortification is them, I don't know who them is, but poisoning us, when really it is a really important thing in public health that has gone as far back as the 50s. As with all nutrients, the goal is not to get all your iron from a single food. Iron intake works best when it's spread throughout the day from a variety of sources. Okay, calcium. Calcium is another long-standing nutrient of concern. The reference value used on the nutrition facts panel is 1,300 milligrams. In previous version of the label, the reference value was 1,000 milligrams, and it helped make the math simpler. But don't worry about that anymore because the math is no longer neat. The information is still useful. So 1 cup of cow's milk provides 25% of the daily value for calcium. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's whole milk, skim milk, whatever in between. It's about 25% the daily value for calcium. Many fortified plant-based milks provide around 30%. But here's an important distinction here. The label does not distinguish between naturally occurring and added calcium. So absorption can differ based on the food source. But that level of detail is really beyond what the label is designed to convey. So I just want to mention, cow's milk has 100% naturally occurring calcium. The plant milks have 100% added calcium. So that's just one of the example there. All right. Adolescents are the ones who need the most calcium due to rapid bone growth, and adolescents often tend to fall short of the recommended intake. Again, no single food provides all calcium needs. Variety matters. All right, next up, potassium. Potassium is now one of the nutrients or the vitamins. It's not a vitamin, it's a mineral. Potassium is now a mineral that is required on the nutrition facts panel. It was previously optional. So there's 2 main reasons potassium is considered an important, why can I not say important? Important from a public health perspective. First, food processing often reduces potassium while increasing sodium. So we need less sodium, more potassium, and food processing increases sodium and reduces potassium. Second, sodium and potassium work together to regulate fluid balance and help with healthy blood pressure. So it's not uncommon where people think about sodium with blood pressure when I want to say, no, it's sodium and potassium. It's too much sodium, not enough potassium together, which is the bigger issue that contributes to blood pressure issues. Most Americans consume too much sodium, not enough potassium. And the reference amount for potassium on the label is 4,700 milligrams. Now, I must say this, potassium is found in many foods besides bananas. Beans, potatoes, dairy, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, rich sources of potassium, many of them way more than bananas. Bananas is about the middle of the list of good food sources. So seeing potassium listed on the label can help identify foods that contribute meaningfully to intake, especially when comparing similar products. All right, so I want to talk briefly about other vitamins and minerals. Some labels will include additional vitamins and minerals beyond those that are required. This is optional. And a longer list does not automatically mean a food is more nutritious. Highly processed foods often list many nutrients due to fortification. So if you walk down the cereal aisle or take a look at some toaster pastries, there's a lot of vitamins and minerals listed there. Remember that the presence of extra nutrients listed on the nutrition facts panel should be viewed as information, not a health claim. It is optional. So I want to make it clear, just because your cereal or your food doesn't list all these other vitamins and minerals in it, doesn't mean it's not there. They are there. Foods contain so many vitamins and minerals. It's just not required to be listed, so most food manufacturers, most labels don't list it. But there's still other nutrients in there besides what is listed on the label. All right, so after talking about these micronutrients, I wanted to go, as I mentioned already, that I want to go through the understanding the percent daily value. So the percent daily value, or percent DV, is one of the most misunderstood parts of the nutrition facts panel. What a lot of people think, based on my experience, what a lot of people think it is saying is the percentage of the food that makes up that nutrient. So like, for example, people will see that saturated fat is 13% daily value and think that means 13% of the food is saturated fat. That is not what it means. What the percent daily value tells you is how much one serving of that food contributes to a full day's intake of that nutrient based on a 2,000 calorie reference. So at the bottom of the label is clearly stated, although it's very small, the 2,000 calorie reference is not a recommendation. It's a standard used for general nutrition advice. Some people need more calories. Some people need fewer. Some need different nutrient distributions entirely. But the percent daily value exists because individualized labels is just not realistic. Maybe, as I said at the beginning, as we're holding a package, it can like somehow sense our DNA and know what our nutrient needs are. But that's kind of scary. That not even in the realm of possibility right now, at least I don't think. So we have this percent daily value to help provide a comparison point across foods. So let me share with you how to use the percent daily value in a practical way. Here's a simple guideline that makes percent daily value easier to use. 5% daily value or less is considered low. 20% daily value or more is considered high. Whether high or low is desirable really depends on the nutrient. So this makes percent daily value useful as a quick comparison tool when choosing between similar foods. So there will be some nutrients without a daily value. So some nutrients intentionally don't have a percent daily value. For example, trans fats has no percent daily value because there is no recommended intake. The goal is 0. Total sugar has no percent daily value because the focus is on added sugars. I talked about that in the last episode. Because total sugar includes both naturally occurring and added sugars. And then protein has no percent daily value because protein needs are based on body weight rather than calorie level. So in protein, grams matter more than percentages for protein. Now I say protein has no percent daily value, but then now and then I see a percent daily value listed. I have no idea what the reference amount is for that because we don't have a percent daily value for protein. Okay. So I just want to mention quickly when I said the 5% daily value is less or less is considered low, 20% or more is considered high, and whether high or low is desirable depends on the nutrient. For example, saturated fat, we want it to be lower. Sodium, we want it to be lower. With calcium, for example, or fiber, we'd want that to be higher. So that's what I mean by whether high or low is desirable depending on the nutrient. That's an example there. All right, so let's put this all together. There's a lot of information on the nutrition facts panel. From last week's episode and this week's episode, I've talked about 45 minutes, an hour about it. Some nutrients are generally helpful to get more throughout the day, like fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium. We want to get them throughout the day, variety of foods. We don't want to, and it's not likely we're going to get all of those nutrients in a single food. Others, nutrients, they're best kept lower most of the time, including saturated fats, sodium, and added sugars. The key word is most of the time. No single food will meet every goal. And it's not harmful if you want to have a chocolate chip cookie that doesn't have a lot of fiber and has added sugar. If you're not doing it all the time, it's not going to be the worst thing ever. Okay. They also want to say this. The Nutrition Facts Panel is not a scorecard. It's not a judgment. It's a tool. Used well, it helps compare foods, helps identify meaningful sources of nutrients, and helps us make choices and support our overall eating patterns. Now, used without context, it may be confusing. It may be misleading. So, take all this information together. And what I tell people all the time, you don't need to focus on every single line there on the Nutrition Facts Panel. Pick one or two things or a couple things that is important to you. Are you working on getting adequate protein? Focus on the protein then. Are you working on getting more fiber? Focus on the fiber then. Are you working on getting less added sugars, less saturated fat? Then look at those. People have different health goals. People have different things they're looking at. I don't expect anybody to sit there and try to find the perfect food that meets all their criteria for every single thing on the label. Look at the serving size, look at the calories per serving, look at the nutrients that you personally want to focus on, or even it's been suggested you need to pay attention to. Okay, with that, this is wrapping up my 2-part Nutrition Facts Panel series, and I hope this has helped you make some decisions, see things more clearly on that familiar, ever-present black and white box on our packaged foods, and it's more useful to you than frustrating or providing some shame. I hope it's not doing that. All right, with that, as always, look in the show notes for the links to the blogs. I included links to all 4 of the blogs there, the one from the 2 blogs from last week's episode and the 2 blogs for this week's episode. It just has all this information written out. So if you want to read it through, bookmark it, whatever it is. All right, with that, that concludes this episode of Real World Nutrition. I've got a lot of exciting things, at least in my opinion, coming up this year. So make sure you follow this podcast so you get the download every single Friday morning when you wake up. Okay, everyone, you take care and bye for now.